2015 to 2018. Decisions ever. Let's rewind a bit and do a quick summary of all the horrific choices they've made. In the 2014 to 15 season, this is what their roster looked like. Not bad, huh? Very young, very athletic, with a ton of potential. The team didn't win many games, but this was the start of a brand new era for the Magic. Then the issue started after the season. From 2015 to 2018, the Orlando Magic had arguably the worst four-year stretch in recent NBA history, in terms of draft picks and transactions. In fact, it's one of the worst four-year stretches in history of any professional sports team. Literally every decision they made went wrong. When you have a young core like this, the worst thing that could happen is the team's inability to build around them. 2015 to 2018 were the most important years for them, so the front office can get players who can complement them, so they can grow together. In the 2015 draft, they took Mario Hezonja. Out of all the busts in the top 10 of that class, Hezonja was the biggest one, and he fell out of the NBA very quickly. Due to having a bad relationship with Coach Skiles,
Things about to drop! Watch out!
They made a good choice, but then they packaged him in one of the worst trades of the decade. Oladipo and Sabonis for Serge Ibaka, who stayed for half a season before demanding to get the hell out of there. In theory, the logic for this trade was that the Magic preferred to build around Vucevic, and getting Ibaka, a stretch forward who can defend quite well, it should have been a good match. It was for a little bit, but they didn't consider that Ibaka was not going to stay on a losing team, after playing for a contender in OKC for so long. He wasn't used to playing for a bad team. Some also believe that Rob Hennigan's job was on the hot seat.
His legs snapped again to some degree as we were making a run for it.
Was a last-ditch attempt to do that.
How'd you get stuck up here?
A
mudslide tore through the village in the last storm. The sledge just above the flood was
always
done.
injured and
By the time everything calmed down,
at the 2015 deadline, they gave away Elfrid Payton for an easily second round pick, even though he was having the best season of his career. They just didn't want to take him, but still, they didn't get anything more than that. In the 2018 draft, they took Mo
we'll head for her location.
Insane physical
She'll
measurements
know what
and
we
was
should
considered a project.
Thanks again,
It wasn't a terrible pick, as he was projected to go around that spot anyway, but he has yet to develop into the Rudy Gobert-type player we expected. It was just a horrendous four-year stretch. They killed the young core they were supposed to build around, and started over from scratch with a bunch of young guys with a very questionable future. The Magic realized this too. They knew they wasted away their most crucial years of rebuilding, and decided to blow it up again at the 2021 deadline. Gordon, Vucevic, and Fournier all got traded away.
Okay.
I think that's
Picking
it.
up some undesirables.
I didn't see Ken talking about
In recent times, the Magic have gone down a different path of rebuilding compared to other teams. Like I mentioned earlier, while they have acquired some additional future picks, they're not amassing a huge number of them like OKC or Houston. Instead, they focused on acquiring young players who their previous team gave up on, most of whom, at one point in their lives, were regarded as having a very high ceiling. Among these guys include Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter Jr., Gary Harris, and even Bol Bol. Wendell was definitely the most interesting pickup. While he didn't have a great time in Chicago, this change of scenery has revitalized his game, and he exemplifies the skills and attitude the draft scouts used to praise him for. Jeff Weltman had this to say about him. I think you can tell a lot about Wendell Carter by the way he plays. He's a worker. He's a guy that cares about his teammates. He's about everything that he wants to be about going forward. Markelle Fultz was another prospect who spent most of his years rehabbing from nerve damage due to a shoulder injury. That was the reason he struggled so much coming into the NBA. The dude lost the ability to shoot. Since the Sixers were ready to contend, they had no time to wait for him to recover. When the Magic acquired him, usually there'd be a lot of fanfare if you get the number one pick of a previous draft. But at that point, everyone assumed his career was basically over. However, prior to his knee injury, Fultz was actually making strides in this game.
Give me a
He
break.
could never live up to his #1 pick potential, but just the chance that he could tap into his pool of talent, it was a chance that Magic were willing to take. $50 million contract because they believed in him that much. Sadly, if it wasn't for his torn ACL, maybe he could have progressed further.
Do you know where
There's still time for that. Despite the haters early in his career, all those guys making fun of his jump shot and his shooting form, I'm sure everyone nowadays is rooting for Fultz to succeed.
He refused to discharge me from the squad.
The unspectacular sixth pick. As I mentioned earlier, in back-to-back drafts in 2017 and 2018, the Magic selected Jonathan Isaac and Mo Bamba, two hyper-athletic players who everyone knew were raw prospects. Neither Bamba nor Isaac have showed they're capable of becoming cornerstones of this franchise. Heck, Isaac has been injured for such a long time. Everyone's forgotten about him. Not only that, but he seems to have descended into the conspiracy squad leader. Nobody knows what's up.
Trained under him ever since it was assigned to his
The
squad.
dude drew comparisons to Kevin Durant prior to coming to the NBA. In terms of
Unforgiving as the desert. But my blade is quicker, deadlier because of him. And he taught me to fight for duty, not just glory. Just something greater than yourself. Yes. And yet he wants me to be tethered to this place. Rather than fulfilling a greater purpose for the Chief's guard.
Medications delivered to your door being prescribed by a doctor to help you with your hair loss. And some people have seen results within 4 to 12 months of using this product. Act fast and try Keeps Out today and get 50% off your first order at www.keeps.com/keep. I'll leave a link in the description. Try it today. It's finally arrived, y'all. Official Dragon Ball Superhero trailer number 4 has dropped today. I was told a few weeks ago.
You said you wanted to pledge your blade to the Chief's guard. Is that what the marshals are? No. The marshals travel the breadth of the clanlands and act in chief for Kara's will. The guard remains at the grove to defend it and the chief. They're like the marshals, only a handful are chosen for such an honor. So why did Ken talk about nowhere to go? He claimed that the greater honor was to serve my squad and clan. All we do is gather supplies for food. How could that compare to guarding the grove? The chief himself.
It drops in about 1 month, well, a month, about 2 months, a little under 2 months. April 22nd, Japan, North American release will be here this summer. No official date yet. So let's go ahead and get into Dragon Ball.
So I did all this?
My breakdown.
We've had everything over the last few years. Torrential rain, lightning strikes.
This, of course, says, let me actually,
This last one
this, of course, said, they all have this.
This year used to be just like the rest of the desert.
Goku, of course, trip to promote
But for all this water,
trailers for
we still rely on
Battle of the
Capital's
Gods,
supply.
and Broly, they all have this. They all
This
have
water's
this.
poison diaspora.
Goku, of course, training on Beerus' planet against Broly, but that's not the last we see of Broly. Let's go. There's footage of all the characters. Vegeta training, that was Vegeta talking. Here we have Gamma 1, Gamma 2. There is a new shot of Pan with the super mineral drink. This is actually a thing they do sell in Japan. It's not called super mineral, but there is a water you buy in vending machines in Japan that has tons of minerals in it. It's like a mineral water, but it has extra like nutrients in it. And let me tell you, it tastes disgusting. I didn't like it when I went over there, y'all. But a lot of athletes drink it after their workouts to replenish you. It's a legit thing over there. They have it in the vending machines. And it even has a very similar like label, so that's how I know they're talking about that. But it's a new shot of Pan. Here we have Gohan knocking out a bunch of soldiers. We also got some confirmations in this trailer too about some stuff that we had talked about. Like, Gamma 1 and 2 about the challenge Gohan. Here we go. That's a shot of early in the film when Gamma, I think it's Gamma 1, he shows up to fight Piccolo, and there's Piccolo's house in the lower right corner of the screen, and yeah, so there they are. That shot right there, of course it's Gohan Right there, looks like Piccolo is there. That's his arm. It looks like that he might have actually found Piccolo beaten up or something. That's what it looks like to me. Piccolo confronting Gamma 2. I'm sorry, it was Gamma 2 who fights Piccolo. This Look at this, bro. Look, those are some quick shots right there, y'all. Let's take a look. We've seen these already before. And then we have, of course, the pose, because every superhero in Dragon Ball has to pose. It's a parody, of course, of Japanese live-action superheroes. Tokusatsu live-action shows, or Super Sentai Kamen Rider, which is Japanese Power Rangers, Max Rider. Here we have a new shot of Red Ribbon Craft. It could be Capsule Craft, but I'm pretty sure that's Red Ribbon Craft. Here, I believe it's Piccolo disguised as a Red Ribbon soldier infiltrating the headquarters. I believe that's what this is. Look at the eyes. That's Piccolo. So Piccolo will be infiltrating Red Ribbon Army headquarters in this in Dragon Ball.
What's...
Hold on! Hold on. You got more out there? In the back or back seat?
You know, I've managed to rewire most of the components in the core, but the energy processor's cracked. Without a way to fabricate another, there's no way I can fix it.
Okay, let me think. What if you bypass the process?
Connect it to the power node. I think that could work.
Now, let's see. Yeah. Probably done. I didn't know which I wanted me to do if I was close, so I just put it on the door. And the socks I put on your bed. I know if you've seen it. Thanks, brothers. They didn't have the cones. That's just evil. get that one, Justin and fun.
Oh, great. The machine's on the way. Beta! Festus has locked me out of the node. Any ideas?
I'll see what I can do. Still to the core. I tapped into the core's network hub. I managed to disrupt Hephaestus' control of the node. You should be able to override it now.
Nice. Thanks.
Yeah, got theirs. Yeah, mountain lions. Remember that? Mama? Remember that when I got chased back home? Damn fine.
unsunk it fled to another chamber.
Well, I better not get comfortable.
Cooper, ain't nobody getting nothing for you. No.
You okay? Want me to get some of your cough medicine for you? You want me to get some of your cough medicine for you? What did you say, Mom? You didn't? Must have been the TV then.
Ash blood.
It's a
It's a
redstone
redstone.
looking
Alright,
like
everyone.
Our ink is falling
Or a
spirit
big one. This right here is where we warm skin.
It's
It's
strange,
strange.
but we
We
get
get
water.
water. Starring Robert
Every
Pattinson. Every village in the
clan
clan
treats
treats
with
with
a
a
capital
capital storage.
storage.
The movie follows
Batman
Batman as he
Trust
tries to
Ash
track
blood.
down Paul Dano's
Not
Not
exactly
exactly
an
an
exciting
exciting
trade.
trade. Season's all cast with characters like Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle and Colin Farrell as the
I
Penguin.
can take another
The description
look around the
was extremely
Where
thin.
would
I
you
usually
like
like going further than that, but I want to
I'm
be
here.
well clear of spoilers on this one, so this is a safe space for everyone.
to find him.
But broadly, I will tell you that I really
Pushed me out of the way as everything collapsed, but then the flood took him.
This next comment, I know it's going
Towards
to
the
hurt
gouge.
some out there.
The gouge?
Nature
Passage
seems to
deep
have
underground.
that effect, but
Come.
the running
I'll
time
show you.
is a very valid point of
Natika.
criticism, and
We
the
need
Batman
orders.
has to
We're
sustain
exposed out
only
here.
3 hours.
Only
half
of us can hold a blade if
machines come.
What do you
I
want
was
us to do?
exhausted at the end of this movie. It is
Go.
a very heavy
The
film.
gouge is in the hillside,
northwest of here. Players to keep track of.
I'll catch up when I
There's a mystery unfolding that forces you to get a couple children holding on your toes. Onward viewing. I enjoyed that ride quite a bit, and I feel pretty confident in saying that Batman does all of that very, very well. But again, 3 hours worth of storytelling is a lot to take in on one viewing, and as many of you know, I genuinely do enjoy examining and even obsessing over the details, so I wanted to throw out some very interesting things to make sure everything lines up as well as I suspect that it does. But again, it's a review on one viewing, and I think this 3-hour film plays quite well for a whole bunch of reasons. And I'll start with that story structure. Mystery felt like it played out in very well-defined smaller chapters, and I think that works especially well because, yes, they build on each other, but also because it was very easily digestible, and also because the small stories within the story feel remarkably full on their own. There was just something about them where even if a particular victim of the Riddler only had a teeny tiny amount of screen time, they still felt like a real person within this world. So also the movies I do very much enjoy the feeling when no matter the amount of screen time a character gets, I am that they have history and also kind of beyond the events of the and that's not very true of a lot of the characters here. They're usually more natural when it comes to the success of the character, but maybe even more so from the actors bringing their voices to get inside, especially the smaller ones. Like Peter Sarsgaard, for example, that character and that part of the movie to me very clearly benefited from having an extremely talented seasoned pro in that part. So yes, I very much liked the story within this story, but the other standout quality of this script is how they all come together to function as a very powerful arc for Bruce Wayne. Bruce is not the same person at the end of this movie as he was at the beginning of it, and yes, that should almost always be a goal in a film, but I feel like it's an especially important and big accomplishment here because we've seen Batman movies before, and this one really does rock an arc that feels very distinct compared to those other films, but also very Robert Pattinson. I was really struck by how he's impacting the guy into this film and also the conclusions that he comes to because of them. It's also something that's made me more excited for it just signals so much more room to continue to grow, meaningful room too. There's something about this movie's arc for the character that feels both very deeply personal for Bruce himself, but then it also carries such great weight throughout Gotham and even beyond it. And I think that has a lot to do with how well the ripple effect is structured within the story. And also the fact that I do find that Bruce's experience had some universal qualities to it. Moving on to Kravitz's Catwoman now. She does have a similar feel to her journey, but maybe not to the same extent. But anyway, she's just very good at justifying every choice the character makes in the movie, which is especially important for the more impulsive ones. I also really dug her chemistry with Pattinson. Again, their dynamic feels so specific to Pattinson's Batman and Kravitz's Catwoman, and I really appreciate attacked people, and that it was more than just how they pushed the overall mission forward. Really, that's something that the movie is quite good at across the board with all of its characters. In some films, I find that the personal elements and growth can feel detached from the big fight or the main mission, and it's very much not the case here, and the film is far stronger because of it. One more cast chemistry note here, because I also absolutely love the dynamic between Pattinson and Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. This right here is a dark, dangerous narrative, so having an ally for Batman with such pure intentions was, I don't know, it was just extremely needed and very satisfying to me. And maybe that's because Paul Dano's Riddler in this movie is just so damn scary. A lot of you know how much I love the horror genre, and this just felt like a whole lot of the Riddler orchestrating his own horror movie plot, and I couldn't get enough of it. Dano is unhinged to the max in this role. His attacks are brutal, and the puzzles he leaves behind genuinely encourage you to engage and lean in more. It's kind of like they've got the same effect on the viewer as they are intended to have on Batman within the film. You just get drawn further and further into his operation, and you may think you have the necessary information to get the upper hand at times, but Riddler also feels like he's everywhere and can do anything at any time. And I guess that could bring me to my favorite part of this new Batman movie, and it's the visuals. There is one particular shot of Riddler, it must have been less than 10 minutes into the film, that actually made me say, "That's awesome," out loud in the theater. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of you can pinpoint this particular shot when you see the film. But even beyond that, Greg Fraser delivers an expertly captured movie here. About the color palette, the way that neon lights and the city street lights really pop. The framing is exceptional, enhancing some of the biggest beats in the film, while also delivering visuals that are just plain old, pretty, and even magical to look at. I was very, very enthusiastic about the work he delivered in Dune, and I'm rooting for him to win that Academy Award. But I think I actually might be even more excited about the work he delivers here in the Batman. I also really need to applaud the stunts team here, along with Fraser and editor William Moy and Tyler Nelson's work, because this right here is just my type of action. The choreography is vicious and it's visceral, where you can practically feel the punches land, and then Fraser captures it all so beautifully, and Moy and Nelson know exactly when cuts are necessary to, yes, keep the energy up, to highlight key character beats within those fights, but then they also know how to make sure that it feels real and not over-edited. Love those qualities in this movie. Alright, score time. I am giving The Batman 4.5 Dewey's out of 5 on the Dewey Decimal scale. Again, this was a lot of movie, and I am very, very eager for another watch, but at this point, I'm also into the film, and especially excited to see that it's such a worthwhile new there. You know, every now and then a line of dialogue doesn't feel quite natural.
Take it easy.
I felt that most when Batman, Gordon, and some of the other characters would be talking about the like,
Critique
it's a
makes
weird
sense,
thing,
Ranger.
word out
The
loud,
same
or
issue
just
somebody who wants
frustrating.
to really looks like.
Didn't feel like something that someone would necessarily do in real life. It might have been necessary to pass on. That's a blip on the radar type of thing. Reed had a vision for this character. She is an exceptional ensemble, and she's looking after the characters would help him bring this vision to life. Yes, I always want more original stories out there, but it is also mighty exciting and quite sacrifice. See and take an iconic character on screen quite a bit and do something
I didn't want to let her go.
refreshing.
But she started winning and very valuable
Really
soldier.
love this movie.
At least
I
that's
want to
after
know
all
what you
this.
think of the Batman, and when you see it, I know you guys are going to let me
Tell
know.
you no
Every
fate
time
won't
you
see.
hit that comment section below, share your own thoughts on the
service to
Batman
my
right
clan.
there. This video review is getting a very special Patreon shout out because there was only one person who I was reaching out to offer this one to. And Billy, I know you are a massive DC fan, and I couldn't wait to
I tried to climb out.
General, but
No use.
specifically for you, my
The
friend.
walls
So,
are too slick.
I hope you enjoyed the review. I hope you enjoyed the movie. And big thanks to
Water's coming in.
the world today. Thanks to everybody out there for watching this review. Stay
There must be
tuned.
another
More on the way.
source.
Very, very
Yes,
soon.
find it. And open it up. You might
You
not be able to, we can talk. But I think there might be a way to move you. Hey. I need you to stay awake. I'm gonna take a look around.
Just like Natika. Relentless as a fire claw.
And you should
You
be
should be used to it.
Just
Sit tight.
I'm going
I'm
to
going to
get
get
you
you out of here.
The Batman is directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and Batman, Zoe Kravitz as Selena Kyle, and Paul Dano as the Riddler. In this film, Bruce Wayne has been prowling the city streets of Gotham at night as Batman for 2 years. He's pretty new to the job, and the police don't really trust him yet, although Gordon, played by Jeffrey Wright, has developed a friendship with him. And when dead bodies begin to show up with cryptic clues left by a serial killer calling himself the Riddler, Batman and Gordon team up to try to solve this case. A few years back, I kind of stopped doing the whole, my most anticipated movie of the year thing, but part of me thinks that if I were still doing that list, the Batman would have been the number one. Matt Reeves has never made a bad film. I loved Cloverfield, I loved his Let Me In remake, and both of his Apes movies. I think he's one of the best filmmakers working today, and I'm so glad he's working in the studio space because he's making really interesting and bold and dramatic films out of what someone else might have just looked at as a paycheck picture. I've also been pulling for Robert Pattinson for many, many years. I thought he was fantastic in so many films, namely my favorite movie of 2019, A Lighthouse. So when he was cast as Batman, I was ecstatic. I thought it was a fantastic choice, despite what many people on the internet keep doing over and over again who have not learned their lesson ever. They just keep doing it. The Batman is absolutely fantastic. It's a 3-hour movie that felt like 2. It's very much as advertised. Reeves has talked extensively about how he wanted to make a detective movie that felt like film noir, that had aspects of David Fincher movies like Seven, and he succeeded with flying colors. Even though Batman has definitely investigated cases in the past, in movies like Mask of the Phantasm or The Dark Knight, it's never been shown to this extent. Reeves is meticulous in how he depicts Batman's ability to solve crimes. And the tech that he uses that I won't spoil, I thought was brilliant. I've never seen it done before in a Batman movie. It was an ingenious way for Batman to tabulate everything that he was investigating. The choice to make the Riddler essentially the Zodiac Killer is also very smart. Because if you look at real-life true crime, someone like the Zodiac who left ciphers and clues and toyed with the police is essentially the Riddler. And although I will always have an affinity for Jim Carrey as that character, this really brings the Riddler down to earth and makes him feel like someone that could feasibly pop up one day. And so the film is sufficiently terrifying at times. And having loved Paul Dano in multiple films, especially Prisoners, the choice to make him a psychotic, murdering maniac works for me. Michael Giacchino had a tough job with this movie because you've had so many great Batman scores over the years. Danny Elfman, James Newton Howard, and Hans Zimmer. It's just, there's so much great Batman music. When you step into that realm, what are you going to do that feels unique? There's a reason this guy gets hired on so many movies. He's brilliant, and I love his Batman thing because it's sufficiently sad while also being exciting and very manly. Like, it feels very muscular, but it's also bleak. Really great shit, man. Loved it. There's been a fair amount of actresses that have played Catwoman in live-action films. Of course, the infamous Halle Berry film. We've had Anne Hathaway and the iconic Michelle Pfeiffer, who I still think is the best Catwoman. But Zoe Kravitz is excellent as Selena Kyle. I love the simplicity of the mask. It works for a character that is not rich, that does not have a lot of money at all. And she would have just cut that out herself and put it on her face, and it just makes sense. Colin Farrell as the Penguin is absolutely unrecognizable. What they've done with him is astounding. And it's not even just the way he looks. Sometimes you hear criticism about actors who get a lot of praise for a role where they're wearing a lot of makeup and prosthetics and CGI work on and all that. His voice, though, I don't know how that voice is coming out of Colin Farrell. It just doesn't sound a thing like him. And again, the Penguin could be a character that you could really go over the top with, and he does. He is very big in the movie. It's not like Danny DeVito being fish, spitting and stuff. It's not that over the top. But every time Colin Farrell has played a villain in a comic book movie like Bullseye and Daredevil, he definitely goes there. This time, I think it really works. And he also has one of the most insane sequences in the film, which you've seen pieces of in the trailer, an amazing car chase with the Batmobile. And that scene was fucking riveting. I also loved Andy Serkis as Alfred. I mean, the casting here is just fucking on point. Everyone is so, so good. So let's talk about the obvious elephant in the room, Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and Batman. This guy, man, I'm not gonna hear shit. I don't want to hear fucking shit about Robert Pattinson and Twilight or Sparkles or whatever that. I don't want to hear it. It's done. It's fucking done. As a people, we're moving on. He's so good in this movie, not just as Batman, but as Bruce Wayne especially. He is very silent. I've obviously only seen the movie once, and it's not like I'm sitting there counting, but it really feels like this is the least amount of lines that has been given to the lead character of the Batman movie. There's a great sequence that's been released already that shows him at a funeral of Bruce Wayne, and he basically just looks at people throughout the whole scene, and it's kind of crushing. You really feel the darkness and the sadness that's looming behind this character. And they do that without going too much into the backstory that we've all heard and seen 1,000 times. You feel that loss just through his portrayal. I also loved how his house was very Batman-y. I know that sounds like a stupid thing to say, but the Nolan films were so realistic. This film is also very grounded, but his house really does look kind of like a gothic manor. It looks like the kind of house where gargoyles would be on the fucking inside. And he's great as Batman. The film has very minimal uses of humor, just like the Nolan trilogy did, where you would insert the occasional, I don't want to say joke, just like, it's just got fun moments. I mean, if you actually watch Batman Begins, that's a fairly funny movie. Remember Nice Coat? I mean, there's actually a fair amount of jokes in Batman Begins. I don't need protection. Protection for them. There's tons of jokes in the Dark Knight trilogy, and the Dark Knight movie is actually very funny. It's just funny in all the scariest ways. This movie has less humor than those films, but there is a surprising amount of levity in certain sequences. Nothing that is going to take away from the experience, and I'll talk about it more in the spoiler video probably. But the Batman suit obviously does a lot of work for an actor who's portraying him. But what Reeves and Pattinson have done with the character in this movie is very much about how he carries himself, how Batman walks, how he turns, how he looks at people. And intimidating without saying anything. He often comes out of the shadows with very heavy footsteps.